Fight or flight. Basic primal response by every living creature to a threat against their safety. I am a big fan of flight. Every situation, big, small, or imagined, I'm all about flight. But then at the beginning of last summer, I found myself coming out the other side of a bad relationship, which, to be fair, is really just the latest in a long line of bad relationships. And I found myself wanting to transform, to shed that skin and become someone else, someone who is strong and who's brave. And I decided I would do that by facing down all of my fears, so that I would learn to be someone who chooses to fight instead of to flee. So I started boxing, and I did a zip line course, and I did a treetop obstacle course, and I learned how to face my fear of heights, and my fear of not being in control, and my fear of looking like a dork. And I did really well at all of them, especially the looking like a dork part. So at the end of the summer, my friend Amy invites me for this really quick trip to the beach. And we're only going to have basically one full day to spend down by the water. And even though that day turned out to be kind of overcast and cloudy, she was like, oh, no, we're doing this. Grab a sweater. Let's go. So we get down and we set up on the beach, and we're sitting there and we're just watching these huge waves crashing over the sand as we wait to get warm enough to go into the water. And these waves really were huge. We found out later it was actually the beginning edge of a hurricane that was going to blow through later on in the week. Now, if it had been up to me, I would have been perfectly happy to spend the entire day just sitting on the beach watching the waves. Because the thing is, of all my fears, water was the biggest, and specifically oceans. And I hadn't really planned to be facing down that particular fear right now. So at 4:30, the lifeguards blow their whistles to tell us that they're going off their shift, and Amy stands up and says, okay, time to go in the water. And to be fair, I don't think she wanted to go in the water because the lifeguards were leaving. I just think she realized, they reminded her that the day was basically over, and we had to go in the water. So she jumps up and she runs down into the surf unhesitatingly, as is her way. Well, I go down and I sort of stand at the shore, and I'm watching these very violent, huge waves crash down, and the only sound I'm aware of is the roaring of the water. And I have never wanted to flee quite like I did right there, and not just back to the blanket. I wanted to flee all the way back to my safe urban living area where the biggest threat to my daily existence was whether or not I was going to get food poisoning from the lunch salad bar. But I reminded myself that I was a fighter now. So I was going to do this. So before I could think anything more about it, I just ran into the water and I caught up to Amy. And she said, hey, all we have to do is get past the brake line and it'll be fine. I said, okay. So as luck would have it, a small wave came through. I'm not sure how I did it, but I managed to get past it and get out. And suddenly we're out past the waves and it's calm. And it was amazing. And I'm out there and I'm bobbing around and I'm watching the sunset over the horizon, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is awesome. I'm in the ocean farther than I've ever been before, and I'm fine. I'm more than fine. Why haven't I done this before? What was I afraid of? What was I ever afraid of? What is fear anyway? I mean, all it does is get in the way of living. This is crazy. And Amy breaks into my thoughts and says, I'm kind of cold. And I realized I was freezing. So we turned to go back into shore, and I noticed we'd gone a little further than the brake line at this point. We drifted a bit, and the waves looked bigger and a little bit more violent, and a little bit of reality kind of set in, and I realized, oh yeah, it's getting out into the water is generally not the hard part. The getting back to shore is where you can die. And I started to kind of freak out, and I honestly start to kind of look around, maybe I can find an alternative way out. I don't know, a dock was gonna suddenly appear, or a boat would come and drop a ladder, or a dolphin would swim up and take me to shore. But a couple of minutes go by, I realized that this is not going to happen. And it was as if every flight instinct that I had suppressed for the entire summer just rose up and consumed me and pushed away all rational thought, all thought of Amy, all thought of anything other than just getting to shore. And I start to swim as fast and as hard as I can. And I get as far as I can, and I stop, and I'm catching my breath, and I'm standing up, and the water's only about to my hips, and I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be fine. I got this. And I hear Amy yell my name, and I turn to see what she wants, and I'm met by this wall of water that goes up, and it's dark, and it's spitting white foam at me, and I look up, and just seconds before it had been sky, and now is just water, and it's arcing over me, and I turn, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I go down. And I crash to the bottom with a shocking amount of force, and I am just gripped with this heart-stopping panic. But I know panic never solves anything. So I'm like, okay, you're gonna be fine. It'll be over in a second, you've been knocked down before. And I go to lift my head up, and I'm smashed back down into the gravel of the bottom of the sea. And I go, okay, this is for real. This is really happening. And then my next thought is, I have no skill set for this. And I was like, well, I guess there you go. But then my fight instinct suddenly kicks in, and I get this idea that if I just grab onto the bottom of the ocean, if I could just dig in and hold on and stay oriented, not get tossed around, then whenever this is over, I'll be able to find my way out. So that's what I'm gonna do, and so I dig into the sandy, silty ground. I'm holding, and I'm being dragged along my stomach out to sea, and I'm just holding on. But I'm calm, right? Because I have a plan, and I believe it's going to work. And so I start thinking, and I start thinking, maybe this is my comeuppance for thinking I could conquer the elements or conquer my fears. Now, I mean, really, what was I'm not an adventurer. I actually have no need to suppress any of my flight instincts. I'm a writer, for God's sakes. Like, if I'm going to have a flight instinct, that's probably because I'm actually about to die. And I lift my head up again to try to get air, and again I am smashed back down into the ground. And I readjust, and I'm clawing, and I sort of have this vague notion that I might be able to claw my way out, and then my lungs start burning with needing oxygen. And I think, yeah, that's all I got. Not sure where I pulled that out of. I sure don't have anything else, so I guess that's it. I guess it's game over. But at least I fought. That's all I got. And then, like that, the water's gone, and I'm free. And I stand up and kind of dazed and a little confused, and I look up onto the shore, and I see this older couple sitting in lawn chairs, and then this teenager sort of holding a boogie board, and they're staring at me with these sort of like shocked and slightly confused looks on their faces. And I'm thinking, oh, they totally just saw that whole thing. They know that I almost died. They look really freaked out. I let them know I'm okay. So I wave, and they don't really respond. And I was like, I know, right? How crazy was that? And I looked down, and I'd gone into the ocean wearing this very stylish strapless bathing suit. And now I'm kind of standing there, I'm wearing sort of a Lycra belt, really, is all that it was. And I really want to believe that I was sort of this like mermaid version, like emerging out of the surf. But then when I consider the reality that it was sand and seaweed plastered instead of like a lovely aquamarine scales, and then stones and little bits of shells sort of embedded in pasty white skin instead of like a nice seashell bra. And I'm pretty sure the effect was slightly less enchanting and more sort of appalling. But, I realize that I should be embarrassed, but I'm not. I don't care. And I stand there trying to sort of untwist my suit and sort of tug it back up, and I start thinking back to that Zen moment that I had in the water, and I realized that I had it completely wrong. Fear is what keeps you alive. Okay, and I had fight instinct when it mattered. I don't know why I need to think I need more fight instinct. So standing there on the beach, I just decide, fuck facing my fears. From now on, I'm respecting my fear. And with that settled, I nod to my new friends and start pulling handfuls of sea debris out of my bathing suit so that I can sort of get it back into some semblance of coverage as I walk back to my blanket.